Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice NFP day. It sounds like NFT, very, very similar, but not so, because one's a worthless picture and the other one's also a worthless picture, but does move the markets a lot. Anyways, other than that, in a more serious tone, I wanted to follow up on some short-term time frame cyclically based setups and also thread that into, if time does allow, the higher term time frames, which you've been looking at for the past couple of months now. I do think that we're starting to see the culmination of that and the ending saga, if you will, in the next 5 days here. Other than that, I want to once again humbly request if you find this content valuable or useful, or if you even hate it. If you even hate it, please do consider liking and subscribing. Tap in the old like button, because if you're not doing the tapping, you might be getting tapped. And if you get tapped, you might just be some supply. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it right now. And I'll start it off with the lower term timeframes on this statistically based setup. This is going to be the hourly here, hourly HPDR indicator, looking at the hourly ranges. So Bitcoin broke below the 50% of historical returns range lows. I guess this was, late last night for myself. And now is based off of the bottom side of the 80% of historical returns range lows right here. But what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Well, what it probably means here is that we do actually have a setup that in the past actually does have a higher probability to play a short-term upside move than a downside move. Now, of course, whenever we come at these sort of setups, especially with the HPDR indicator, they do give really good insight as to what to expect in case of success or failure. So I actually look at the event of a failure as just as valuable in this case as success, which would be to the upside versus failure to the downside. So once Bitcoin starts closing these hourlies below the 50% of historical returns range lows, that's when we can go and cross-check the volatility for declines, of which the BBWB indicator shows over here upon this closure on the green vertical bar. Once that happens, there actually is a nice setup here. And statistically speaking, if we can go ahead and back test it, which I will show over here, the past 50 setups that we've seen with this particular setup, so again, declining volatility alongside closing below those 50% of historical returns range lows, has led to, well, 36 out of those 50 iterations playing out with short-term upside movements. So I'd give it about a 72% strike rate. As always, when we're talking about statistics, we're not talking about certainties. So it has a higher probability to play out that short-term upside move than a downside move. But still, 72%, I mean, like almost 3 out of 10 times going to play out to the downside, or at least that's what we should expect. So like I did say, it's very, very valuable to know both the success and the failure of this, because it can give us some areas of interest to be watchful of, and also a time frame to be watchful of as well. Whatever. Anyways, in the case of a success, so in this case a bounce, on average it did return about 20%, as you can see right here. In the case of a failure, lost, in that case, going down about almost 2.5%. I did a calculation of the first standard deviation right here for the win side versus the loss side right here. So some pretty, some bigger numbers in there for sure. And then obviously the time that we expect on average for the wins to play out at about 10 hours versus the time on the losing trades at about 17.5 hours. Now, to be quite frank with you, if I'm just looking at this with my eyes, it looks like it wants to break down. just to put it bluntly, it does look like it wants to break down here. But I will go off of that nonetheless. And in this case, if we do see success, well, but what about just over 2% look like on top of current price action? That put Bitcoin around yesterday's high at about just above $24,000. Keep that number in the back of your mind, because it will pop up later. By the same token, if it does fail, which failure would be denoted by a closure below about 23, a little bit below 23,400 on Bybit, that is, which actually is carrying a bit of a premium over other exchanges right now, we'd be looking at, well, likely a move just below $23,000, somewhere around just below 23, basically in alignment where this rally began on the 1st of February here. So full retracement if that does indeed happen. Again, timing wise, 10 hours on average for the win side versus about 17 on the loss side. So we'd be looking for this to play out, what do you know, right around US market open. Crazy how that shit works out, or a little bit after US market open, I believe. So probably plays hand in hand with the NFP numbers coming out later today. And they're going to use that, the market's going to use that to kind of drive towards one of these targets. Anyways, we can go now and reference stochastic momentum just to kind of see where the current pivots are. Like I said, keep that $24,000 number in your mind's eye, because If Bitcoin does trade back up above there and close the daily above there, more importantly, we will see the daily stochastic oscillator once again turn to the upside. Right now it is angled to the downside short term. So pressure is to the downside. 12-hour time frame also actually going to be up as of right now. I would say that this is a little bit of a weaker read for what it's worth at 23,200 going to be the current pivot. 6-hour time frame is going to be showing downside pressure below 23,950. 4-hour time frame is going to be showing downside pressure below 23,850, and hourly is going to be down as well, actually, as long as Bitcoin's below 23,520, about $80 away from current price action. So, short-term downside pressure does resume, and while the setup over here does traditionally favor a short-term upside move, I would say that again, just kind of looking at this, I mean, it dare I say, the Jesus toast looks like it wants to break down. If we are looking at this from a Jesus toast perspective, kind of a bit of a descending triangle right there, and just curious what the measurement would be. Just take the width of the overall formation and about 23,200 or so, if that does play out. All right, cool. So moving on from there, we can go and reference, just our traditional setups over here. And what's interesting about this, 4-hour time frame, 1, 2, 3 drives of bearish divergence come off those last few highs. So fair enough. Again, more signals that do suggest a little bit of short-term downside pressure. 6-hour time frame, same shit. 12-hour time frame, same shit. Daily is building up 1, 2, 3 drives of bearish divergence as well. I would say that is obviously going to have a much lower target if that plays out, but that won't be confirmed until Bitcoin's closing dailies like a little bit below $23,000. So if that does happen, in this case, you see that short-term signal play out to the downside first, and then the daily close below there. Probably looking, next week to come back down somewhere around like mid to low 21s, and try for a higher low there. Moving on now, I wanted to once again follow up on the very high-term time frame setup, the 5-day signal over here, because there's a few things of great interest. So first and foremost, I'll briefly explain it. Just let me check on time. Yeah, we're all good. So first and foremost, just looking at this, what the setup is this. Extreme lows on volatility represented by this indicator, the BBWP indicator, coupled with the direction of the stochastic oscillator upon expansion of volatility has led towards these statistics over here. In fact, I've also broken it down in a spreadsheet. I've got it here on my spreadsheet on the 5-day. Hey, don't laugh. Oh my God. There will be tapping later. So yes, the 5-day. Before I interrupted myself right there, we expect on average from that setup about 43% on the long side return. You can look at the first hand deviation as well, and then also the time. More importantly, on average, to take about 33.5 days. Well, why is that relevant right now? From the time that setup fired off to where we're currently at, well, in one day it'll be day number 30. So tomorrow will mark day number 30 actually. So time-wise, it's getting very, very close to where we kind of do expect these ones to come into at least a prolonged consolidation and maybe some downside. And then also in terms of like percentage gain from that setup, well, we've seen about a 41% move or so. So, going back into it, I would say it's quite relevant to say that this one's, we've probably seen it. We've probably seen the totality of that signal for what it's worth. So, take it as you will. But basically, what does that mean? It means that if Bitcoin is failing to bust on through 24,000 or whatever it is to the upside, then by let's say, 5 days from now, at most 10 days from now, you're probably looking at retracement back down to the low 21s, mid to low 21s, something like that. And yeah, actually would be looking for a higher low there first and foremost. Let's just see, is there a nice fib coming in that region? That'd be lovely. Yeah, somewhere around. Well, maybe not actually. All right, well, it's fucked. Hey, stop that. That's not what I wanted to see. Although my little bot is doing well. That was good. Good job, bot. Cool. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's. That's going to do it for today's analysis. I forgot to shield the old Bybit link. Bybit's got their link in the description. They got 0% on maker fees for derivative contract orders. Great to go get wrecked with, because at least you don't pay the fees if you're limit side up. Yeah. With that said, take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.